Hello, welcome to the channel. This is a channel update. Just going to shut this door, so it's a quick one. I'll try and make this quick. What I'm really wanting to do here is we've been talking about electric cars as one of the subjects that I get into quite a bit. So there's a lot of stuff that the electric car fans push out. I'm just trying to quickly go over it. I mean, obviously I'm not really bought into the electric car thing, which most people wouldn't. Most sensible people wouldn't do. So look, there was some of the points. I want to record them because it takes a while for us to focus when it. Yeah, it does. It was focused perfectly there, and because I went away, sort of. Oh, shut up. So this Grant Oseland, well, he went and disappeared. So basically, what it is, I'm hooked up by a rocket scientist. And that's where I'm getting a lot of my information from. I can sort of see the problems with electric cars, but I can't quite articulate it in engineering because I'm actually I'm an artist, so I can't articulate it so well. So I get help from somebody. So I'll be honest about that, who understands the engineering side of it all. And he's in my friend's in Obsolescence Management. That's what his career is. So basically it sort of covers components and all that sort of thing, the feasibility of everything. So it's like a trade. You could say it's a trade insight rather than the bumph that gets pushed out. And so there's a cohort of say like middle class numpties who feed off this sort of thing and promote it. And the main sort of factor what I'll say about them is, what the fuck happened there? Did that change size? Did I touch something there? I did. What's happened there? Oh shit. What an idiot. Right, is that better? No. So I've changed the depth of. How have I managed that? How? And I can't deal with it now because I'm not able to focus on. Right, that's it back. It went down to 80%. So this Matt, we went over everything, but he's went and deleted all his comments. That Grant Oseland. So let's go to that. There's a guy that I had a chat with who was quite reasonable. What happens with a lot of them? A lot of them do delete their comments when they lose, so to speak. So the Wildstar man. So says Paul Joy. I'm not quite finished with him yet. But he'll say things like this guy, this Paul Joy, said that it doesn't cost there's no servicing costs with a Tesla. So they'll say things like that and you'll go, oh great, so Elon Musk's going to pay for your Tesla. But they're compartmentalising their information and they're not being honest about what they're saying. So what I'm really wanting to discuss is the costs. I mean, it's not, so the way around it for Paul Joy and people like that, Wildstar man. So he's saying he's getting electric, for 2p or, 2p a mile for his Polestar. And it's actually 50p a mile. So you've got to take the overall costs of the Polestar. So if he, say like somebody else is paying 48p for Wildstar man, this guy, right? Somebody else is paying it. So he's paying 2p a mile. So he may well be, but that's not the cost of running a Polestar. So what I'm talking about is the cost of electric cars. Somebody's got to pay for it. So generally it's like a taxpayer. So we got into a lot of things. We'll stay away from Paul Joy at the moment because we'll do something later on that. But I'm going to go over Ryan Jacques. So this guy, David Sands, he's spot on. EVs have meteoric depreciation, losing like 60% of their value in 3 years. So, right, let's get Ryan Jacques. So he said to me, Ryan Jacques said, I haven't got a clue, right? So then he said, Ryan Jacques says, saves me a fortune driving an EV. I just bought an old one that's 10 times the car my old petrol one was. Running costs are just basically the electric I put in. Brakes are the original ones and it doesn't really need servicing. Oh, and it's got close to 90,000 miles and it's 8 years old and the battery's pretty much as new. Assuming you have bought a Nissan Leaf, well at this point he didn't say what it was, and all you're doing is driving to shops and back, it's probably an ideal car for you, but I assume you have a real car in case you have to go somewhere. I have a BMW i3, says Ryan, and I go everywhere in it, regularly driving from Hull to Bradford. I drive to Nottingham. It's really easy to live with. Cars 8 years old with 90,000 miles, values around £78,000. Ryan, so that's me. Cinder, you are living in a relatively warm and flat part of the world and that helps the battery. If it works for you, great. I know I can buy a nice vehicle for £2,000 that will last 10 years. What you are doing is not a cheap electric car. Ryan, it's not warm in East Yorkshire. Haha, yeah, it's flat, but we have regen braking, so it's efficient even in hilly places. If you're someone who only spends £2,000 on old cars, you've probably got 2 or 3 years left until second-hand Corsa E or similar start being in your price range. I drove my i3 from Hull to Sheffield when we had sub-freezing temps. I rapid charge at IKEA for 15 minutes before setting off to Nottingham and then back to Sheffield. The next day I went from Sheffield back to Nottingham, back to Hull, only stopping for lunch and a charge that lasted the duration of my McDonald's meal. How often do you do all that though? And that's a car that has a WLT, what's WLT mean? Of 109 miles. I'm going to get a used Tesla Model 3 next year for around £15,000. I could easily get something cheaper with similar range, but I fancy something a bit more premium. So, Lucinda says to Ryan, you have bought a premium vehicle. It's up to you how you spend your money, but I don't wish to be forced into buying an expensive electric vehicle as it is not cost effective. Regen braking has been in ICE vehicles for 40 odd years, and don't forget you get free heat from the ICE vehicle. You might be better off with a hybrid. Ryan comes back. Regen braking isn't in ICE vehicles. You don't regenerate the petrol you put in it. Just shuts off the injectors. Nobody is forcing you to buy anything. They are expensive as they're an emerging technology. If you keep up to date with the progress in battery technology, you'd see how massively the most expensive cost has come down in the last 4 years. It's likely they will be cheaper than ICE vehicles. You'll see in time. Just be open-minded about making the switch, as you'll likely put yourself at a disadvantage. Lucinda says to Ryan, I am being forced because ICE vehicles are banned from some areas of the UK. Now and more will follow. The battery prices have come down by 90% in 10 years, but are still expensive. I don't see the price of BEVs coming down to match the abilities of current ICE vehicles for decades. Of course, the alternator is returning power when we slow down. We just don't call it regen and we get free heating. Ryan Jacques to Lucinda, that's not how a car works. The heating comes from the waste heat of the engine and the alternator is just sustaining the car's electrical systems. Lucinda to Ryan Jacques, may not be called regen, but the principles are the same, returning energy to the vehicle. BEVs have to have some sales gimmick, and I think regen only returns about 2% of the energy to the battery, but that's not what worries me most. Up in Scotland, we have already had people having to abandon their BEVs to take shelter in ICE vehicles in poor weather. Had there been no ICE vehicles, they would have died. Obviously not so much of a problem in populated areas. Ryan comes back. This gets a bit heavy, by the way. So to break it down, Ryan to Lucinda. To break it down, battery density increases with every generation of revised chemistry. The biggest advances have been improved safety and recently much improved cold weather performance. The cutting-edge battery tech eventually trickles down to the more economy vehicles. 10 years ago, 100 miles of range was pretty much the standard, and now it's 2020, 2050 with some cars having more than 400 to 600 mile range. Cars are being discussed, and CAT L, the world's biggest battery manufacturer, are trialling their gold battery for aviation. Yeah. Which has twice the density as their previous generation of battery. This is likely to see applications in EV cars by the end of the decade. Sodium ion phosphate batteries are being commercially produced, promised to be way cheaper than the lithium ion or LFP batteries due to the abundance of the materials required. I don't understand where the doubt comes from. Right. Ryan to Lucinda. So he started firing stuff at me there, but never mind. Just keep reading it out. So he was sending like 2 or 3 messages, and I was responding. So it was like tennis. It was like bat, 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 bat. This was like 3 hours on Saturday afternoon. I'd rather be in a BV. Ryan to Lucinda. I'd rather be in a BEV, to be honest. Even one with a small battery and no heat pump would last a few days. I worked out mine would last an entire day not moving with the heat on. A nice vehicle run out of fuel way before that. A Tesla with heat pump. A guy called Bjorn on YouTube tested it with the heating on 21 degrees in a Norway winter. It lasted 4 days, so this has been busted. I can tell you that I've seen Regen add 4 miles of range plus on a journey. It definitely isn't a gimmick. It's that good that I rarely have to use the brakes in my car. In fact, they're the original ones from factory. Lucinda to Ryan. Batteries may be capable of taking over from ICE vehicles in 20 years' time at vast expense. But that means money isn't being spent on other problems. With this amount of money wasted on this subject, cancer would have been cured by now. Wow. Ryan to Lucinda. I don't think car companies research cures for cancer. Ryan to Lucinda. However, the battery tech from the research will lead to cheaper battery storage from renewables, so research centre operating costs can be vastly reduced. Lucinda to Ryan. None of that changes the fact that people have had to shelter in ICE vehicles when their BEV ran out of heat. Electricity is up to you. You want to freeze to death of heat. When the battery ran out of heat, well, it ran out of electricity. It's up to you how you want to freeze to death. If you want to freeze to death. Lucinda to Ryan. Because the money has been wasted on battery cars instead of research to cure cancer. Ryan to Lucinda. Maybe an old Nissan Leaf from 10 years ago that hasn't been charged up fully with an old first-gen chemistry battery, but not a modern EV. This is about the cars being stranded in a blizzard. People nearly died. But I'll try and stick to what's been said. Lucinda to Ryan. Energy density is never going to be high enough to be anything but a gimmick. Ryan to Lucinda. You can say that about anything. Luxury yachts, space travel, etc. The fact is, it generates the company revenue. We live in a capitalist society. Yeah, that's him answering the cancer. How we could have cured cancer. So he's going into capitalism. You're starting to get a feel for this guy as you get further and further down it. So that's what happens when you really get into it. You get to see where they're coming from, because everybody's got a background of some kind that they're trying to hide, or there's another way of putting it. Not exactly hide, but it's private or whatever. Ryan to Lucinda. Not true. It goes up every generation. They've proved you can at least double what's commercially available now. He's talking about energy density. Lucinda Ryan. This was only last year and they were Teslas. I am happy for you to take that risk, but don't see why I should be forced to. That's the blizzards. People dying in blizzards, or almost dying. They got rescued by ICE vehicles. And you'll notice in the riots they didn't use electric cars. The police used ICE vehicles. Why? Because the fucking things are too dangerous, aren't they? And too expensive. Ryan to Lucinda. Seems unlikely to me unless the battery was flat. This is him still rejecting my information about people being caught in a blizzard and getting rescued from their BEVs into ICE vehicles. Seems unlikely to me unless the battery was flat, in which case the same as having a car with no fuel. I really don't see the difference. Tesla with at least 60 kilowatt hour battery, so even if the heater used a constant 1 kilowatt of power, it would last 60 hours from full. Ryan to Lucinda. I want to address the cancer research statement you made. Do you know how many cancers are cured caused by exhaust fumes? Do you know how many childhood leukemia cases there are around the oil fields of the countries that produce oil? It's a lot. Thousands in the UK die every year to illness caused by vehicle emissions. We spend billions on oil that we could be using for the betterment of mankind. We should be moving forward to a sustainable world of abundance. Ultimately, this is where this tech leads us, a world of plenty for all. Imagine energy prices being so low we can focus on producing food at a fraction of the cost. Cheap medicine, cheap food and a richer life of plenty. We can't progress if we live in fear of hypotheticals and dig our heels into our old unsustainable ways. It's the future and you can't stop it. Either take the ride and enjoy it or get pulled in kicking and screaming. So what happens when you object to... Can you see how he's getting into a sort of cult thing? It's like a sort of cult group, and because I'm questioning what he's saying or pointing faults, or then I'm a non-believer, you know. The analogies with the LGBT thing are quite... Well, you know, I actually suspect that with this guy, actually. I don't think he's actually... Well, never mind, right, shut up. Lucinda to Ryan. Clearly the vehicles were not fully charged because they were going somewhere, and unlike your idealised heating quoted in the real world, air-sourced heat pumps are inefficient below 5 degrees C. And of course, in a blizzard, the vents would be blocked, and it will take more than 1 kilowatt to heat the inside of a car in a blizzard. And I'm talking about what actually happened, not theory. So what we're really talking about is real world. You know, real world experiences. So this is what these guys, they obliterate real world experiences. They just go with their statistics and their data and all this stuff that they've made up. So then the reality of all this sort of thing is when you're out there, it's a bit like the analogy would be introducing wolves or bears to Scotland, which they have talked about. It's all very well sitting in Edinburgh going, this is a brilliant idea, let's introduce bears. But you're not the one that's going to have to wrestle a wolf or a bear at 3 o'clock in the morning somewhere when it's killing, you know, children or something up north. And this is like the real world, you know. And a lot of these, like, Greens and everything, they're in cities, you know, it's all a bit complicated, but they're not really living in the real world, or they're living in this idealised dream world. This guy's showing signs of it. Ryan, but I don't think he's like a really bad person, I like to point out. He's just he's been taken in by this. At the end of the day, I would say to Ryan, well, why don't I say this at the end, right? Ryan to Lucinda, if the vents were blocked, the heating wouldn't work in a nice vehicle. I've never had that problem. I've been in blizzards. Yeah, okay, well. Lucinda to Ryan. Well, nobody is going to get better from these theoretical cancers you talk about, as the money has been wasted on battery vehicles, electric vehicles, and wind turbines. General green drivel. Ryan to Lucinda. ASHP systems work fine in Norway, and they get way worse winters. They have a backup resistive element. I tell you, no, a 2 kilowatt resistive heater in a small space like a car would be very toasty, and that would still last 30 hours. I just don't buy it. There must have been other factors at play. He's not taking it. What he's not buying is real world experience. So when you go out in your Tesla or whatever, or in your car, do I look get in my car, is the tank full right now? Well, no, it isn't right now. It's needing fuel, right? Sometimes it's full. I might have filled it up. So, you know, when you say like you're going somewhere, up in Elgin or something, this happened up the A9 or whatever, you're going to be driving along with half charge or quarter charge or 3/4 charge. It's the same with petrol or diesel. You think, right, I've got enough diesel, I've got half a tank. And then you get caught in a blizzard, you know, so it's real world experiences we're talking about. I mean, you're not going to have your battery full of charge all the time. You're not going to have your car fuel tank full. You know, it's real world. You know, and you're not. The whole definition of getting caught in a blizzard is you're not deliberately going out to be caught in a blizzard. You know, you're going out to do your business, whatever it is you're doing, and you're not expecting that to happen. Or maybe you just haven't, paid attention. Whatever. So, right. So Lucinda Orion. And of course, you're probably not old enough to remember that nuclear power was going to be so cheap to monitor. So we have heard these promises. It was going to be so cheap, too cheap to monitor. So I've heard these promises before. And as to it being inevitable, governments change. Yeah, governments change. So the green stuff can change. Lucinda Orion. I think you need to go and look at how air source heat pumps work. In Norway they have multiple compressors and are expensive to run. The only choice for a country that can't burn means gas. This feeble argument often mentions the plains of America as well, but anything is technically possible, but unaffordable. Ryan to Lucinda. Not theoretical, there's scientific papers on it. Inverted commas, green drivel isn't about some woke agenda. It's an opportunity to make everyone's lives better, more equal for all. That's where he's going with this. Lucinda Orion, 2 kilowatts may not be sufficient in a blizzard, but practically they have shown themselves to be insufficient to maintain life. Hence the move to an ice vehicle until rescue arrives. So we'll read that again. 2 kilowatts may not be sufficient in a blizzard, but practically they have shown themselves to be insufficient to maintain life, hence the move to an ice vehicle until rescue arrives. Ryan to Lucinda. I was actually referring to ASHP in cars, since EVs are the majority fuel type sold. There. If they were that expensive, people would use resistive heating instead. I think he's still talking about Norway. Equality, Lucinda to Ryan. Equality for all is exactly what it's not doing. This is about banning your car and any excuse will do. Ryan to Lucinda. Nonsense. 2 kilowatt is a lot of heat, energy in a small space like a car. So he's still sticking with that. Ryan to Lucinda. Nobody is banning the car. I've had this before. Ryan. So he's posted something there. I'm not going to look at it. This is the guy. I'm pretty sure winter in Norway is a decent test. Lucinda Orion. As I have said, in practice, BEVs have to be abandoned and people were forced to go in ice vehicles to survive. That's not theoretical. It happened. That was in Scotland, the north of Scotland. Lucinda Orion. The government and local authorities are trying very hard to ban cars, and that will affect you even if it hasn't already. Ryan to Lucinda. I doubt it. In a modern EV that was appropriately charged. He's back to the heating thing. Ryan to Lucinda. Nobody is banning cars. Lucinda Orion. Was multiple EVs in various states of charge was only last year. That was up north in Scotland in a blizzard. Lucinda Orion. That may be true where you live, but that's not true in Scotland where vehicles are banned. Ryan to Lucinda. Sumo Digital. Senior level designer. He's woke. Studies at Staffordshire University. And there's me. Wow. Ryan, where were we? Various states of charge, says Ryan. Why? Did they abandon them if they weren't flat? So what we meant, or what I meant, was that when you're going on your journey, I've already mentioned this. Sounds like we're just wanting to maintain the charge level to me rather than them being in petrol. Or petrol. What it means is that they entered that area, the A9, in various states of charge. That's what it means. Obviously, it's an obvious thing. I mean, it would be, wouldn't it? Not everybody's going to have the same states of charge, right? It's just not going to happen. So Ryan to Lucinda. So where is this place you can't drive? This is back to the banning of cars. And isn't this a different conversation? What's it got to do with BEVs? That's actually quite ignorant, Ryan. Lucinda Orion. The batteries save themselves and shut off the heating when they get to a low. At that point, you abandon the vehicle or you die. Was only with a couple of years ago, so not so old BEVs. So what we're saying there is that the battery has to save itself, and that's why the electric's used to save itself. It's got to be kept at the same. It'll destroy itself if it goes either too hot or too cold. The battery, right? So obviously it's not going to heat you and then destroy itself, is it? Right? So Lucinda Orion, major Scottish cities have banned certain vehicles, but not electric vehicles that are significantly more polluting to the environment. So this is true. So Dundee, Aberdeen, Edinburgh and Glasgow, I have 2 of my cars are diesel cars. They are banned. They're lower in CO2 emissions, but the government, the councils, Glasgow City Council and various councils in Scotland, the main cities in Scotland have banned them. You can't go like you can with Sadiq Khan. Sadiq Khan in London, you can go in and pay, is it £12 a day or something? But in Scotland, they're banned. So you go in and you pay a fine. It's like £100. So if you don't pay that fine, you're looking at thousands of pounds. It's a complete scam. And there's a flaw with every single. Glasgow's got a motorway goes right through it, so they can't touch that. The M8 motorway. It's like ridiculous. You banned the diesel. Citroen C3 I've got is banned. Now the other flaw in their little scheme is that my 1995 Volkswagen T4 Transporter diesel will be able to go into the cities when it's 30 years old, which is in January 2025. So they have a 30-year thing on historic vehicles. I don't know why, don't ask me, but they have. Aberdeen, they've got a port there with diesel supply boats. Edinburgh, just got a bunch of fannies in Edinburgh. Dundee, shithole. Scotland's, look at drug deaths, right? I diversify. Let's try and get back to this. So the cars are banned, not to mention the bike lanes. So in Stirling, Edinburgh, but Stirling, I can talk about Stirling because that's where I live. Stirling, they put these bike lanes in, so that's banning cars because they've taken half the road away. So you've got, the roads are narrow now, so you've got buses and trucks going over drains, squeezing in, and the car parking spaces have been reduced. So there's like a ban, so you can't take your car on the bike lanes because they're blocked off. You probably could drive up them. I don't know what legislation would be against that, but obviously you can't use the bike lane, right? There's nobody going to use the bike lane. I've seen cars parked on it. So that's banning of cars, and that's happening. That's not, So my car, a sustainable car that I paid for, and it's passed all the MOTs and all the rest of it, and I pay for it. I've got 2 of them, the two Citroens. They're banned. I can't go into. But then you go, why do I want to go into Glasgow? Why do I want to go into Edinburgh? Why do I want to go into Dundee? Why do I want to go into Aberdeen? So then these cities are going, right, okay. So Ryan says to Lucinda, you said that they had various states of charge. This sounds like a FUD news article, as I've heard the exact opposite. The heater will last days in a charge. So he's not having this at all. New cars even longer. I don't see this as a very good argument, even if it was true. So he's doubting what I'm telling him. He doesn't believe me. If it was true, it sounds like an extreme edge case. All right, yeah, living in Scotland is extreme, yeah. You'd have to be stranded for more than a day. Well, that's happened. Ryan to Lucinda. So they haven't banned cars then. Well, how... Sounds lovely. I'd much rather that so I didn't have to breathe in cancerous fumes while shopping. Right, so what he means is they banned my cars but they haven't banned his car. So they have banned cars. They've banned cars because they've banned the cars that are banned. The cars that aren't banned. So no, Ryan, you're not being honest there. Lucinda Orion, it's on the BBC website, the government's own voice piece for green stupidity, and it was only overnight. So what that's saying is even the BBC put this story up about the people getting taken into ICE vehicles, and that's the government's mouthpiece for green stupidity. So Ryan to Lucinda, sounds like you have a bias against saving our planet. Oh, he started chuckling that shit at me. Do you have investments in fossil fuels? Lucinda Orion, well, that just goes to show exactly how poor your research is. As modern petrol vehicles, the air coming out is cleaner than the air going in, but completely ignored by the people making the rules. To me, that's dogma. So it's complete. So they're making clean fuels. The petrol engines are so clean, and this is what they should have done with all this. They should have invested all that, but they went on this path, this electric battery path thing, right? And then we're getting forced along. Well, they're trying to force us along with it. So, Lucinda Orion, and of course, I look forward to your campaign to ban diesel lorries on the motorway. Why are you not doing that? You are happy to pollute other people's environments so you can eat. I look forward to your campaign. What that means is, he's sitting there with his little car, but all the stuff he orders on Amazon, and all the food he eats, and everything he buys at Tesco and Asda, wherever he goes shopping, gets delivered. And he's quite happy for his diesel trucks piling up and down the road, but he's saving the planet with his little BMW I-Pace. But never mind. So Lucinda Orion, none of this green drivel will save the planet. It's not at threat. But if you are worried about pollution, get rid of your electric car, which is 4 times as polluting as an ICE vehicle. He's really on the ropes here. Like Ryan to Lucinda. Also, neither of us are researching anything. Review articles from people who have done research, so it's second-hand knowledge at best. Lucinda Orion. The green stupidity is making fortunes for rich people, especially Elon Musk. Suddenly, the richest man in the world makes electric cars. Where do you think the plastic comes from in your car and the materials come from? DRC. Where child labour is... That's the Democratic Republic of Congo. Child labour is dying to provide it. Lucinda Orion. I'm referring to experts in the field and my own knowledge, but you are right, we are not experts in the field, but we can use common sense to recognise a lie by the government. Ryan to Lucinda. What my car that's made from recycled materials. Where do you think the cobalt came from to refine your precious liquid death? Batteries are moving away from cobalt. Fuel refineries will always use it. I don't have a problem with using plastics to produce stuff that we can recycle. It's just really dumb to spend all that energy digging it up to burn it once. Ryan to Lucinda. I listen to scientists and proven facts, not conjecture or fear-mongering. I trust science. It is the closest thing we have to the truth. Lucinda Orion. It's nickel. That's the material from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and that is required in all vehicles. I am not disagreeing with you that burning petrol seems a little unusual, but of course, you have renewable liquid fuels that power ICE vehicles. The fuel does not have to come out of the ground, but you carry on polluting the planet. I don't mind. Lucinda Orion. You are not trusting science, as you have shown with some of your statements. You are trusting government propaganda. You need to question what they are telling you, as you have what I have been telling you. Enjoy your motoring. Was nice chatting. I'm going to read that again. I didn't read it properly. You are not trusting science, as you have shown with some of your statements. You are trusting government propaganda. You need to question what they are telling you, as you have what I have been telling you. No, sorry, I've kind of made a bit of a mistake. You need to question what they are telling you. What I have been telling you. Enjoy your motoring. Was nice chatting. So Ryan and Lucinda. You're talking about synthetic fuels. They would be great, but they take a ton of energy to produce and currently cost 10 times as much as petrol and still emit CO2. I will still pollute. It's inevitable. The trick is to try to reduce that as low as possible. I have solar on my house that I charge my car with. I eat mainly a vegetarian diet and I try to buy used where possible. I mainly get all my clothes second hand and I try to buy sustainable where possible. You're right though, we all pollute and it weighs on my conscience, so I try to do whatever I can. Right, so if you want to go and have a look at that conversation, I think that'll do it for now. I think it was important to reread a lot of that because a lot of that information is actually for myself, so I can refer back to it. There's a lot more in there. It's pretty good information. Don't be fooled, you know. So there's the Octopus energy there. So if you want to look at that conversation, go there. Just search for Octopus energy on Facebook. And then find the conversation. Alright, so on that note, thanks for watching. Like, share and subscribe. Bye.
peace and love.